Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and I've got the final bit of Endgame sort of video wrap up for the exploding zombie miner, that's the one, and then also an introduction to another character, which is the Scorching Ray, and kind of everything fire damage over time, Trickster. So to get things going with the exploding zombie miner, it did end up working, kind of, I think. It did all of my sort of game, clear, bosses, end game, all that sort of stuff, but it didn't feel particularly good doing it. I don't know if it's the mining playstyle or just the actual way I chose to do the mining playstyle with exploding zombies, but the clear did feel pretty mediocre. Like just having to constantly stutter step and throw your mines before every pack and wait for a sort of little payload to go off. I do think traditional miners that use much more powerful skills, things like arc that can clear screens, make more sense for a mining character. But either way, I mean, it still worked out. I think maybe I just didn't really like the mining playstyle as much. For boss fights, it was pretty decent. Like my end game boss fighting went roughly about as good as I thought it would. It could have used a bit more damage, I think, to truly feel like it was worth building into exploding zombies, but we did kill every Guardian, Conqueror, that sort of thing pretty quickly, just not in like the one phase of mines that I was kind of hoping to. As you'll see, for example here, one round of mines usually takes us like half of a boss's health, and then you got to do another round of mines, and sometimes it's a bit harder to achieve when the boss is being a bit of a dick. So it did do decent damage, but I thought I was trying to squeeze out roughly as much as I could, and I was expecting maybe just a bit more. Either way, it was better for bossing than the previous version, which was without mines, because it was just much tougher to keep your summons going, and with the mining version you can pre-fire a lot more to just get a lot more of your burst coming in at one time. So it did do all the end game. It did it smooth enough. Died a couple times, I think, to Maven and also to Cirrus. But all of the Guardians, my ancestral, freaking, what do you call him? Little minion Guardian dude, item guy. Yeah, that one. He didn't die. None of them were really dying on boss fights, so just the fact that we scaled life and had a teensy bit of regen with some good support gems meant none of my minions were ever dying, which is pretty good, but I don't know. Didn't seem particularly worth doing in the end. If you still like the idea, like building it was a lot of fun and coming up with the sort of concept was a lot of fun, whereas mapping with it wasn't the best, and also bossing with it was decent, but not the best either. So keep all that in mind. It was an okay build. It wasn't anything too special in the end. Just a nice quirky simulation of some sort of crap you can still do in this game. So with that, we move on to something quite a bit simpler, quite a bit more vanilla, and that is fire damage over time, which is apparently in a pretty bad place. Like Ignite builds and Fire Dot, I've been told many times, is just shit at the moment, and maybe it is. But I really wanted to give Scorching Ray another shot at some point, since it's been a few years since I've touched Scorching Ray, I think. And I haven't played a Trickster in a while either. So I wanted to give Scorching Ray a shot with, well, basically every other fire dot you can, because you're scaling them all kind of the same way at the same time. So we're using a Scorching Ray. I have a cast roll channel with Firestorm. So the Firestorm itself is trying to deal a big ignite hit, but for single target we'll swap in Fireball. So we'll have a cast roll channel Scorching Ray into a Fireball, which does the Scorching Ray debuff, and then hopefully a big ignite from Fireball as well. At the same time, we've also got a 5 or 6 link flame wall, depending on what links I've got up at the time, and also a burning trap, fire trap. The burning portion of the burning ground will do quite a bit of damage, and also stack with all the other burns. So in the end, you can have an ignite from fireball, you can have Scorching Ray debuffs up, you can have flame wall down, and you can have a fire trap doing damage. So with all those dots going off, it ends up being a pretty effective playstyle and character. For the most part, we are using more or less Scorching Ray to clear things, and then some flame wall action as well. The firestorm is kind of cosmetic for clear and doesn't do too much, to be honest, but we do have Cremator node, which kills corpses on ignite, so it helps with that sometimes. For the most part, it is pretty much cosmetic. I think just using a 6-link Scorching Ray for clear would be more effective, so keep that in mind going forward with this character. I'm pretty much using Firestorm just because it looks cool and feels kind of cooler, but otherwise 6-link Scorching Ray is probably going to be the actual play for clearing, and combine Scorching Ray with Flame Wall, and you've got your Stormbrand for Elemental Equilibrium, and the clear is really quite smooth. You can get quite a lot of life and defense on this character if you really want to. I think the character will have something like almost 6k life by the end with some pretty good regen, a bit of energy shield, and it should make us able to take some hits here or there. And at the same time, I think the damage will be pretty good. At the moment, it's burning through bosses pretty nicely. Still got some, stuff to ramp and all that, but fire damage over time seems to be doing enough when combining like a lot of them at the same time. And mostly it's just going to be Scorching Ray and Flame Wall for clear, and those are pretty damn powerful when they're stacked quickly, and it's felt very good so far. And there's a lot of min-max you can do for this type of character to make it like a lot better than it otherwise would be as a first character, so there is plenty of work to be done. And Trickster feels pretty good having the life and energy shield on kill. Haven't used that node in a while, but it's pretty just vanilla sort of build. Not too much you can do with it to take it to extreme heights. Like I said, I will be using Fireball for single target, so we'll have Scorching Ray stacking quickly, and then Fireball on a 4 or 5 link that should do some pretty decent ignite damage of its own as well. So if everything's dealing something like 500,000 worth of dot, in the end you might have about a 2 million dot, and typically damage over time, stuff that is that reliable, does feel pretty good in endgame, and you don't need mind-blowing DPS, just really reliable DPS that has a lot of uptime and will kill things pretty reliably. So a few more levels to go before we're ready to do some end game. This is like level 80 by now, and hopefully fine-tune the character. And if all of our DPS comes together and we do some pretty good end game, I'd say it's going to be a big success. And Scorching Ray, Flame Wall, that sort of shit can work in modern day PoE even after all of the nerfs that came in, which is pretty cool. So let me jump in and show you what the character looks like. So here is the current character, level 81, Fire Dot Isn't Dead Copium. Had a, sort of feeling it was supposed to be dead, so trying to just convince myself it's not and try and make the most of the situation. Currently about 5k life, 1400 ES, not using mana for anything other than casting and reserving shit, even though we've got a good bunch from Trickster. It's a bit of a shame, but best we can do is kind of reserve it in this situation, I think, for more damage. We are taking that node. We do have the frenzies and power charges, the big recovery node, and some damage over time. Based around Scorching Ray, which stacks up to 8 times, does a bunch of damage over time, and then fire exposure of -25. We've then got Meteor, which is the anomalous version, so it does do some level of ignite when it hits, but it is kind of scuffed because it interrupts your elemental equilibrium at times, but looks pretty cool, right? So got that going for us. And the default Scorching Ray actually without the MTX looks pretty good these days as well. So even if you don't have the MTX, I think it looks very nice as well. And it's not really necessary to have MTX in this build, I don't think, but certainly changes the way things look. So using cast wall channeling to then have both of those going off, got a flame wall up in the hat, and the flame wall is ideally attached by an elder hat that has burning damage and the Horror Essence, which is 30 more Ellie. So if we have 4 links up here, it turns into basically a 6-link hat, and that does make Flame Wall do some pretty good damage. At the moment, I'm just using Fire Trap up here as well, but I'll probably have a separate link for Fire Trap as well. That said, Fire Trap's the least necessary portion of this build by far, because it does do some pretty good burn damage, similar to like Flame Wall, a bit higher, but it's very short-lived. Like that Fire Trap Burning Ground goes away after 1 or 2 seconds. So it's just something you'd probably pre-fire on a boss when you can, or when you've got nothing else you can really do, because you're like running away, you've got flame walls, and then you just throw down a fire trap. Otherwise, it's all Scorching Ray and flame wall damage. So ideally, Essence of Horror gets us burning damage up here, and then we get some good linkage happening. So I'll grab a level 21 and it'll do some pretty good damage. Flame Wall actually does serious business damage for general clear and stuff, and it's very nice for the expeditions. Same with Scorching Ray. I'm using a Venomous Shroud. Never used one of these before, but I think it's a pretty good all-rounder chest, since we're using so many skills. If I had like a +1 skill sort of chest, it just would only work for 1 skill, whereas this gives us good utility for everything. So -10 to all enemy res, which is just, you know, typically going to be about 10% damage, 10% reduced damage for anything affected by Spider's Web, and Aspect of the Spider also has a bigger area. So everything's getting Aspect of the Spider really effectively and quickly, and it's a good defensive bonus in our build. I've got it crafted on a shield here, and then I've also got Malevolence and Vitality. I'm trying to scale some life regen so that standing still and getting life back is a viable way of recovery in this build, and that's why the Vitality and also some Trickster stuff, and throughout the build picking up a little bit of regen like here, gonna grab this node here, got some regen there, add little small nodes here, a bit of regen while stationary, and then the Pantheon over here gets up to 2% regen. In the end, we should have something like, I don't know, at the moment, like 1,000 or so regen per second for life, and that's without having killed anything. So that's pretty effective to get life back, I think. And then also a stone golem every now and again too. What else? So basically you have to scale through fire damage over time, multi, and gem levels. So I grabbed a fractured shield. Can't remember how much it costs, pretty cheap though. +1 all fire skills, and then just trying to roll fire damage with it using scorching fossils. I think in this case I actually used essences for life to get this result, and just hoping to get fire damage. But the important thing is the +1. The build does in the end get a lot of % damage, so the +1 levels and the fire dot multi, stuff like that, is going to be more important. So I do have the fire dot multi wand, can make it a lot better. This is just the basic version at the moment, but I've also grabbed a +1 fracture wand over here, and that's what I'll probably try and craft into becoming the end game weapon. Otherwise, pretty basic stuff, just an endurance, minimum endurance ring, so I can have 2 endurance charges up. So it's a flammability ring over here. Flammability rings are pretty damn cheap because not very meta to be doing fire stuff at the moment. Grabbed a fire dot multi amulet, though obviously you can get plus levels as well. +1 int, +1 fire. I just grabbed this fire dot multi amulet because, I don't know, it didn't cost too much, and I didn't want to have to go through the headache of crafting the +1s, which can be pretty expensive, and I don't want you to think it's necessary. But grab a +1, grab another +1, awaken or smash them together, and then you can meta craft the suffixes if you really want a perfect one. Grabbed some boots that just got life, resists, and some onslaught on kill. Used a elder belt that had some catalysts on it, and then just pristine fossil spammed it. Ideally wanted some life and a life % recovery. Got all of that, and no resists, but still good enough. And then I bought these gloves that just have some fire damage over time multi. My original plan was to get Shaper gloves that also have trap and mine damage, and we use Essence of Delirium, so I could have a 6-link trap happening as well. But like I said, just fire trap seems to be a bit of an afterthought in this build, less of a necessity than the other skills. So that's basically the entire setup. Also running Cinder Swallow and then Sulfur Flask for some extra regen and the Eternal Mana so that you can actually get your mana back, because we do have decent regen, but with the Cast While Channeling on the Firestorm, it sucks up a lot of mana. Whereas if it's just Scorching Ray, you can get away with your mana most of the time, but regardless, it does help having that Enduring Mana Flask to help overcome things. And I'll probably end up clearing with 6-link Scorching Ray occasionally, I think, and probably putting in just a level 21 Fireball or so, and it should end up doing some good single target, I think. Hopefully I got some good single target examples for you in the next video. Otherwise, my medium jewels here. Medium fire jewels really kind of suck now after the nerfs. It's hard to justify them, but I still am. I think it's still the play. Cooked Alive and Exposure Therapy are the two things I'm going for. Damage over time multi and -5 fire res, but man, are they so much worse than they used to be. And then my large fire over here gives Cremator, gives Disorienting Display, very good for defensive purposes, and then Smoking Remains. Otherwise, just take everything you can on the tree, grab a Malevolence Watcher's Eye for damage over time. They are pretty expensive, it's like 5 exalts, but pretty worth doing for the min-max. If you can afford to get that in the end. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the characters rundown, as far as I can think or remember. Canning. Stormbrand. So Stormbrand is the way we keep up Elemental Overload and also Elemental Equilibrium. So I do cast it pretty damn often. And like I said, Firestorm gets in the way of that, because the first big hit is fine, but it's got a lot of little hits that come in afterwards, and on larger bosses it definitely gets in the way of that, which is why we really don't want to use it for single target in the end, and I'm pretty sure Fireball is going to be better anyway. Okay, so that's it for the character. For the overview, I will be taking it into Endgame. I'm very happy with how it's going, and it's been pretty damn fun so far, and I think it's going to be an effective character for the long term. Hopefully it holds up that way. The last thing I forgot to mention is that you do get stunned a bunch. So you can either build into anti-stun, there's some medium clusters and shit you can take, some things on the passive tree. I took Solar Brine King and just upgraded it a bit, but if you really hate getting stunned, there are options out there, things like that, channeling clusters. But yeah, something to fix as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.